Okay, so let's talk top 5 baits. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Top 5 baits.
I feel like we should work backwards.
For the fall.
We should work backwards. Start with number 5, or least, the lowest of our top 5, and work our way up to our favorite on number 1.
But I like them all.
Well, I tell you what.
Number 5 is definitely not going to be a jig.
I can tell you right now.
Tell you that.
I'm gonna start laying these out where nobody can see them, so that I can show you exactly what mine.
See what the hell I'm working with here.
I'm gonna flippity flop or flip flop. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's my 5.
Is this 5 or 1?
That's 5. Is that your 5?
That's pretty much.
So that's fine. So I think there's only one or two baits that we don't overlap on what our top 5 are.
Either be. I think these could go in the same category.
Dallin, don't tell me that.
I think these could go in the same category.
Okay, fair enough. I concur with that.
You do that with.
Is that your number 3 or your number 4?
That's my number 3. Yeah, number 3. And that's just there because.
No, that's legitimately my top 5.
That's
it would have been number 6, but now you're combining those two, that becomes number 5.
Okay.
It was gonna be my honorable mention.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Okay, so you start.
I don't always throw it, but we'll start with the honorable mention. This is our favorite. Doesn't mean it's not yours, and it's not the best.
Distinction.
It's not the best. But number 5, I would have to go with topwater. Any sort of topwater. The spooks, they always work. Summer, spring, fall. Cold water, haven't really had much luck with topwater, cold water, because those fish are just pushed down deep.
No, I don't usually start throwing topwater until like they're aggressively shallow first thing in the spring. But then you can usually make it work most of the rest of the year.
People catching on topwater late season and super early season with frogs. But for me personally, I just kind of stay away from it until I feel like throwing it, really, and when the time's right. Number 4.
No. Just
is it you?
Just stay with number 5.
Okay.
Cause I gotta circle back.
Oh, you're gonna do
5.
it too.
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
Okay, man. Number 5 is also top one. There's like.
Can you tell we fish together a lot? It's the same freaking way.
You know what works great about us? We like there's a very narrow, like if you took everything that we like to fish, 2 circles, you spread it out, everything overlaps except for this little sliver, like jerk baits for him. He loves and has all the confidence in the world, and I'm still not quite there. So like we can fish 2 totally different ways to break down a bite, and then the moment it's like definitively like, yeah, that's the thing to throw, boom, we're both like, yep, and we get right into it, and it's never a problem. Mm-hmm. But topwater for me is also my number 5. Again, just because it's our top 5 doesn't mean it's the top 5. It's an entirely subjective thing. There's probably going to be a lot of overlap with these, but
I mean, there literally is, because we just picked out the same freaking baits in the same order, pretty much.
Yeah, these are all picked from literally years of success and just killing it with these baits for both numbers and quality. So it's not just like some arbitrary, like, yeah, these are all cool. Like, this is tried and true shit. So take it for what it's worth. Also very specific to the north. So there you go. So anyway, topwater. Not just any topwater. This is just what I happen to have in my house. I really do like walking baits. Either walking bait or buzz bait. And I will actually throw a buzz bait more often than a walking bait. When you get into that fall transition and the bass really start pushing up, you get a couple of those first cold nights, like they get hella aggressive on top.
They are fired up.
Yep, not only largemouth, but smallmouth too. But that largemouth bite, you can throw frogs, you can throw just regular topwater, you can throw poppers. Although I feel like you're better off actually moving a little bit more aggressive. And then buzz baits or big old wake baits. To me, like they are all applicable in this, and they all count as number 5. Although you could argue that big topwater, like big boy swim bait, wake baits, like that could be moved way up the list. But for the sake of argument, we're talking topwater. I will always throw it in the fall. Largemouth or smallmouth, I don't care where I am, where I'm going, I'm going to have that tied on because they're going to come up and they're going to bust it. Always, always, always have to have top water tied on. And as the water, like, especially right now, where it's starting to cool down, but not like cold, they're going to get a lot more aggressive. So you don't have to work it really slow either, which is always a fun thing. So number 5, top water.
Top water. Yeah.
So out of all the top water, what is your number 1? What is your number 1 if you're number 5?
Number 1 top water bait that I like to throw. Probably a spook, honestly.
Are you sure? What about
Any sort of
lizard?
walking bait.
What about lizard's question?
What is it?
Highlighted in blue right there.
Oh.
Would you like to amend your number 1, number 5?
I never throw it during the day.
Yeah, that's true.
That's only that.
Rats
that's,
are really good, though.
Rats is literally, I only throw rats at night, and I know they work during the day. I just don't ever throw them during the day because I'd rather catch them on something else.
Spook's gonna be my 1B to my buzzbait being my 1A. It's like it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm fishing shallow, I'm throwing a buzzbait all day. I'll burn that from the bank out to 100 feet all day, and I love it. If I'm going much more open water, and I know I can get away with it, maybe a little bit deeper structure I'm trying to target, then I'll go the spook. But there you go, top water. That's number 5 on the list. Time of day, literally all day. When you get into the fall, you can do it all day. Lizard, where's that comment so I can pin it? There you go. Tim, long live the spook.
I mean, look at Oliver. Oliver was out there throwing top water pretty much all day when we were out on Champlain with them.
Oh, yeah, and he was killing it.
I don't even know how many fish he caught
Too many.
in front of us.
Too many, Oliver. You caught too many fish.
I'm pissed I broke that drum off.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. It was funny, too, because that last day, I'm like, I'm fishing it, and he yells over, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm throwing top water. He's like, this is what you should do. And he told me, I'm like, okay. And I was like, what the hell am I still doing wrong? I'm literally doing what he just said to do.
Literally the exact same thing.
Like
he was still catching fish, and I was watching him. He was literally doing the same thing, same pause length, everything, and Oliver was just catching all the fish.
I'm wondering if my color was just not right.
I don't think it really matters at that point.
I'd like to think not, but clearly it did that day. But it was funny. He said it. I'm like, God damn it, I'm already doing that. They just don't like me.
Well.
So, but yeah, anyway, lizard, anytime during the day, like especially in the morning, that's the first thing I'm going to throw. Like pretty much starting now until we'll say like middle to end of October when water temps get down to, well, no, I won't even put a date on it. I'll say water temps like 55 and colder. When things are starting to slow down a little bit, I won't even throw them up on top. I won't throw top water. Will I? No, not for the most part. I'll start throwing other things. But first thing in the morning, like we've done killer. I've had so many days where like literally as soon as you throw it out, it gets blown up. My favorite memory was doing a tournament up on Squam Lake back in 2011. I had to think about that. That was the year before my first son was born. The only year I fished a whole club. And we ran out to what we hoped was going to be our first spot. We got lucky. Nobody else went there first. Got off the motor, picked up my top water, fired it out as I'm walking up to pick up the trolling motor. As soon as it hit the water, it exploded. I never even got the trolling motor deployed into the lake, and I had a 3 3/4 smallmouth. It was awesome. And I won't say that happens often, but it happens often enough that really should be throwing top water. Dan, Mark Bear just makes some killer conditions specific buzzbait, which may be number 6 on your list. Well, I would still say it's number 5, topwater in general. But if I had to pick one specifically for number 5, it's going to be buzzbait, whereas Andrews is going to be a spook. Mm-hmm. So there you go. That's number 5. Hang on. What is town? My top 5 in fall: spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, squarebills, buzzbaits, and then ploppers. Whopper plopper should not be overlooked. That is also still a really good bait. Even after like that peak hype and popularity with it, still a great bait. I would totally throw that. That's why I'm kind of trying to generalize it as topwater in general, hence the generalization. So much generalization.
Topwater is number 5. Next.
Number 4. So you went first. I get to go first.
So is that just... Okay, go for it.
Okay, so that's number 5. I had that. We both said this. What was that? Your number what? 3?
Yeah.
So there's 1.
That's, I mean, kind of. That's kind of, yeah.
So if that's your number 3, this is my number 3. Is that your number 4?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put those in between. So, you know what's kind of funny? Your number 3 is my number 4.
Okay.
Wait, no, that can't be. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I amend what I said. All right, number 4. Oh, what size spook? Sorry, hang on. Brian, what size spook? Full, junior, or puppy? Full. Go for the big boy. Honestly, you can throw any size. I think it'd be fine, but I like the full size. Number 4, and this is only because it should be higher in the list, but it's not because my numbers aren't quite there, but I tell you that quality is there. And it's only getting really knocked because, excuse me, I haven't fished them nearly as much as everything else. So I have to bring it down a couple of pegs. And a lot of other people's lists where this is something that's been thrown a lot more, it's probably much higher, if not at the top of the list. So there's that added perspective as to why this is number 4.
Or it's because you're sucked into the game.
Then there's that. Number 4 for me, big swim baits. Mm-hmm. That's a 6.8-inch Kitech on an 8-aught beast hook. Actually, it might be a 10-aught. This happens to be a flashy swimmer. You don't have to use it with a little, the flashy swimmer version with the spinner bait. A little willow leaf blade on it. And then this is a Defcon, and that's a 7-inch, 3-piece, shallow diving swim bait. On 20-pound line, I can get that comfortably down to about 2 feet without, ripping on it. If I move it a lot faster, I can get it down to a little over 3 feet before it wants to roll over on itself a little bit. But at that point, I'm, cranking down on the thing hard. Big swim baits. It's fall time. They're looking for a damn meal. You should be giving it to them. You should at least have the presentation ready. So that's obvious. That's my number 4. This is actually not necessarily a big bait, but now you're towing the line. That's about as small as I would even remotely consider for a big bait, but I'm talking 5.5 inches bigger. So the Beast Coast Creep would be another great example. That's 6.5 inches. But don't overlook this because it's kind of in that same category for just a straight up fish-like profile swim bait. This one I actually have on a Arky head because I was trying to fish it like a jig, get it down some grass and some rock. I left the brush guard on there. That works phenomenal. You can also just straight up swim it. You can do a number of things. For that, I am throwing it if they're not buried in the thick crap or basically trying to think about this.
If they're roaming,
if they're especially roaming shallow flats, if they're starting to tuck up against cover that I can deflect off of, if they're really in thick vegetation, then I will go with something like this, a Kitech style that I can easily slip through. But for the most part, I actually like this more for when they're just straight up roaming open water, but they've moved up shallow. That's one of my favorite things to do. South Jersey, yes, I actually have caught fish. I'm going to pin that. I have caught a fish on the Pats. I threw it actually a little bit when we were in Vermont, and then I got scared and put it down because there's a lot of pike there. But that's my number 4. I'm going with I'm throwing a meal because you're gonna have days where they want something super teeny tiny, like a little finesse jig, the Beast Coast Hustler, like a 3-inch craw on or swim bait, whatever. And then there's days where they want to be fed. They're looking for that one big ass easy meal, and they're gonna choke it, and they're gonna choke it all damn day. And it's seriously one of the most fun bites you'll ever get into. Big rods, big line, and just
big
straight up retrieving it. There's no magic to it. You just swim the damn thing. If you can deflect it, just like anything else, that's even better. Not absolutely necessary though. And that's 10 feet of water or less is what I'm really if that bite is dead consistent, you better believe I'm throwing that every single day I'm out there in the fall. That's my number 4. Big swim baits. You had those as your number 4.
I know. I'm almost bouncing back to that. Because for me, now that I have spent so much time throwing bigger swim baits and that I've caught fish and my confidence is through the roof with them, my number 1 is kind of split between what it is, and it's 50-50 between that and big swim baits. But if I'm not throwing, it's hard to, I can't really, now you're going to bring it out and be like, okay, oh no, that's not my number 1 now.
Although it's not the same bait, it is a big bait. Go. Oh, no, that is...
I'm almost thinking my number 4 is going to be spinnerbait and chatterbait. This is hard.
Are you sure? Big Big old glides.
That's hard to say number 4. Now that I'm looking at them, I'm like, well, I'd rather throw that than
Okay, well, let's
chatterbait and spinnerbait.
see.
It's all situation, though. It can't...
Go more historical.
Okay.
If you to simplify this, I would say go more like what has historically for numbers of years, without fail, been the better producer.
Okay, I'll go with big baits now then for number 4.
With
Even
big
though I'm
baits?
still going to cast it just as much as I'm going to cast a jig.
So your number 4 is these dudes?
Nah.
I was gonna
Just
say.
kidding.
Was that it? Oh, he's changed it. He changed his number 4.
Completely.
You can't be doing that.
Swim jig. I
jig with a
hardly
swim bait.
throw these. If they're not biting a spinnerbait, and I know that it should be a moving bait bite, if they're not biting a chatterbait or a spinnerbait, then I'll go to this. But 9 times out of 10, just because it's me, I will throw something different just because I want to. That's a hard one. I don't know. There's so many good baits there. Number 4. Should I stick with swim jig? I'm going to stick with swim jig.
Swim jig with a swim bait trailer, or
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
okay.
Always swim bait trailer. I only throw swim jigs with swim bait trailers.
So I'm gonna ask you to elaborate. What size
just don't-
head? What weight? Sorry, what weight head? And then typically, what
Probably-
size swim bait do you like to throw on that?
Half ounce and the biggest bait I can really get away with in the fall. I mean, what's that, a 4.8?
That's a 5.
That's a 5.
Because that's not a Kai-Tech, that's a knockoff. I think it's Bass Assassin.
Oh, the red and black bag stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So pretty much I would go anywhere up to probably 5 to 6 inch bait. I mean, this is on the back of a chatterbait. That's not really going to work.
No.
So
It's too much,
pretty much
darling.
the
Too
biggest,
much.
it's probably just, we'll say 4.8 inch Kai-Tech on the back of a swim jig on, let's say, anywhere from, depending on how deep I'm fishing it, 3/8 to ½ ounce. What size is that one? Is that ½ ounce? That's
No,
pretty big.
3/8.
Is it really?
Oh wait, that's a Beast Coast Gorilla Swim Jig, so that actually might be 7/16. It's a good ½ ounce.
So ½
essentially.
ounce, yeah. But I would generally throw ½ ounce if I'm going a little deeper. But 3/8 is pretty much what I'm always going to throw because it's already a big bait. It's a big profile. You can swim it a little slower, and unless they really want it fast, then throw a ½ ounce on there and just rip that thing back and really just crash through everything in its way. So I'd have to say that's number 4 for me because I really don't throw them that often. I'd rather throw. It's pretty bad to say, but a big swim bait, like a 6 or 7 inch Citizens, or like something big, soft body plastic like that.
Yep. Actually, hang on, let me go back to Tim. I'll absolutely second that. When they're hitting a big bait, it's all I want to throw. There you go, buddy. And then, so Dan, what's your retrieve on a swim jig?
I mean, I've had days where you're just ripping it back and they eat it. Have days where you're kind of yo-yoing it, almost like couple cranks, pause, couple cranks, pause, couple cranks, pause, kind of like a square bill. Or just adding in a pause. You can really just swim it back and they should eat it. I vary my retrieve on swim jigs and chatterbaits and spinnerbaits pretty much every single cast until I figure out what they want to hit.
Yep. I'm intentionally not elaborating my thoughts on this because this is on my list, but it's higher up. So I'm going to give my feedback when we get to that number.
He's better than explaining things.
No. I mean, yeah, but
yes.
no. Not always.
Your job is to explain things.
This is true. The life of an engineer.
Mine is to smash my knuckles off stuff.
Well, I'm a sales engineer now, so I really have to learn how to explain things. Anyway.
Oh, here's good practice.
I don't need practice.
What's your number 3? Oh, you haven't done 4 yet. No, you did.
We
What's
did.
your
Number
3?
4. So number 5, to reiterate, topwater. Yours specifically spook. Pook. Mine specifically buzzbait. Number 4 was giant swim bait for me. And your number 4 was the swim jig with a swim bait trailer.
Yes, correct.
Anything on those works too, by the way. I mean, you can throw a craw trailer You can twist it sideways too, kind of like you're working a bladed jig in the spring, and that kind of has a really fin-like presentation. So it doesn't have to be a swim bait. Reaction Innovations, their Skinny Dipper and Strike King. Oh God, why can't I remember the name of the bait that my sponsor makes? My apologies, but they make one that's same profile. Is it the Dream Shad? No, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's that thinner, more streamlined profile. Those actually look really, really good on the back of a swim jig too. So don't overlook those. And actually, those Elastec ones that you can get from Strike King are really good because you're gonna rip through them. Just get that Loctite like gel control glue. Comes in like this little teeny tiny friggin' tub, whatever it is, and just put a couple of drops right on the bait. Like get the bait a 1/4 inch away from being fully seated against the head, and just put a couple of drops of that gel control Loctite super glue. Then send it home and let it sit for 5 minutes tops, and you'll be good to go. And you'll be amazed how much longer those swim baits last. I mean, you can literally throw one for weeks on end before it ends up getting torn off. It's great. Oh, Tim, you're gonna love what we got coming up then there, friend. King Baits, keep that question. Okay. You know what? This is actually worthwhile to take a step back. Caffeine Shad, there it is. Thank you. King Baits has a really good question that is worth visiting because especially here in the Northeast, the drought has been insane. Unless you're in like the very further northern reaches where a lot of that weather from Canada is just kind of kissing into the northern end of the United States. But man, I gotta tell you, the drought around here has been horrific.
Oh, it's terrible.
So, King, where do I fish with this drought? All the shallow rock and wood I fish isn't underwater anymore, and I don't have a fish finder and usually fish shallow. You gotta move offshore.
You gotta go out. Just look towards the middle of the lake and head that way and start fishing.
Yep. And this is the most important thing. Just because there's no cover does not mean that there's no fish. We were talking about it. We've been talking about it for like the last 3 years because that's something that we ourselves have really tried to hammer home how important it is to get comfortable with that. You don't always have to have structure to find really good fish.
We were fishing 20 to 25 feet this past weekend, and there was literally
zero structure.
No grass, no rocks, nothing. Just mucky bottom and just flat. Side imaging was literally showing as flat as this table. Nothing. And we were catching them.
Right.
One after another.
You know what was out there, though? Bait fish.
Lots of bait fish.
Lots and lots and lots of bait fish. Bait fish is your best friend. If you start marking multiple schools of bait fish, the bass will be somewhere relatively close by, if not right on top of them. So it gets a lot tougher if you don't have electronics. Like this is by far the toughest time of the year if you don't have electronics, when especially when that bank beating bite dies, because then okay, you have no eyes. So how do you go about doing that? The best way I can think to explain it and give you your best chance of success, if you don't have any electronics of any kind, if you know really, really good productive areas that are shallow that you can visually see, which is a nice pair of sunglasses. So we'll say really good vegetation, 5 to 10 feet of water. Go out 300 feet away from that. And from that 300-foot point, work your way slowly back in towards the vegetation. Does that always work? No. But I do feel that that's going to be your highest probability for success when you have nothing else for electronics to assist you to find whether you're marking fish that should be bass, or most likely are bass, or bait fish. So that should help, and I hope that helps other people that are also struggling in this time of the year, between the drought just making a lot of typically good shoreline stuff non-existent or terrible, and especially vegetation in general. Still, it never developed this year. That 1-2 punch of that prolonged spring, a lot of overcast days straight into just
1,000,000 degrees.
Yeah, no clouds, like just pure sunny days and insane heat. It didn't give any vegetation a chance, and we never had any rain to come in to replenish anything. So it was just, is absolutely made for by far the worst year that I can remember in recent years as far as offshore vegetation development. A lot of places we were looking forward to fishing this year that we just avoided because the vegetation wasn't there and it sucked. Went there a couple times. We're like, this is like a totally different lake, and it is what it is. So there you go. I do want to digress a little bit from the top 5 to address that because it is important, and I know it's going to be helpful for other people. So you just did your number 4? So we both did 4. That's right. You started 5. I started 4. So
It sucks because I may have to group 2 types of baits in together for my number 2.
he's cheating.
I am cheating.
He's cheating.
But they're... Okay. That's tough. That's a tough one. Because I like them all.
While you think about that, I'll read Carl's comment because it is perfect. My old man always told me bass will always chase the bait fish. However, over 50% of what they eat up here in the Northeast is crawfish, period. Yep. Which is why that jig bite has been absolutely fire this year. And it is always, always fire. There's a reason why I have a jig in my hand from ice out to ice in. Because it just friggin' works. The challenge comes in finding the right cadence, color, size, and profile. Depth. To the hilt. Anyway.
To the hill.
So,
Always hitting the bottom.
did you pick number 3 yet while I was talking about Carl here?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because
No.
I'm feeling like,
There's too many
is this
baits.
one?
There's like 12 baits out here, and I'm already like, they're all number 1.
It's right here. Guys, it's right here. You can't see it. It's coming.
I mean, it's either that, or that.
That monkey in your brain is like seized up. He can't crash them
No,
symbols.
he smashed freaking jellyfish together.
Make up your mind.
It's hard to do. Number 3, I am going to have to go with...
Come on, you can do it. I believe in you. Is it? I'm guaranteeing you, it's probably a toss between that and that, isn't it?
And that.
Ooh.
That's what I'm saying. This is hard. They're all hard.
Give your. Glad I caught that. I don't know why my mic muted itself again. Sorry about that.
I've caught giants on all of them in the fall. Besides this. I haven't caught a giant on this in the fall yet, so I'm going to have to go...
It's got to be one of
with-
those two, and that's your honorable mention.
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to phone a friend?
Mom! Long or short?
There it is. Yeah.
Jerkbait.
Jerkbait.
Jerkbait's number 3 for me. When those bass move up shallow and they're chasing those bait balls around, I'm shallow, I mean, and I have to say maximum of 9 feet deep for me is when I see them up in like 9 and less, how do I say it, 9 and less feet? Line 9.
9 feet or shallower.
9 feet or shallower. Thank you.
There you go.
See?
There's a number of ways you could say it.
9 feet or less.
That still
That's
also
even better.
works. It just sounds...
9 or less.
For some reason, that doesn't sound right in my brain either. But no, it's good. You're
Nothing
good.
sounds right in my brain.
Just rock it.
Jerk baits. When I know they're moved up on the flats and they are feeding on those bait fish.
Especially this one. It's really nice.
Yeah, those ones are sweet.
Jack
Those
will
ones sound like
rearrange.
they break your rod every time you cast them.
Every time.
I will crack the ever
Living poo?
living bejesus out of this thing.
That's a good word.
Jesus?
Be Jesus.
Bay Jesus.
Be Jesus.
Working 6, 7, 8 jerks into, and then like a fast pause, anywhere like fast for me, 3 to 5 seconds, and then back to it. Snap, 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 snap. Pause. If nothing hit it yet, just keep going all the way back to the boat. I will not stop. I'm not going to sit there and wait 15, 20, 30 seconds because the
Don't need
water's
to.
not cold. It is working its way down to the 50s, 60s, 50s, and those fish are fired up. They're trying to feed as much as possible on those bait fish to fatten up for the winter, so they don't have to move around much in the winter to eat. Anything else I want to say about that?
I'm waiting.
So am I. Brain process. Buffering in.
I'll go and I'll let your brain think. That's one of the things that is so phenomenal about a jerkbait this time of the year is that it's both a slow stationary presentation, but also an extremely fast reactionary presentation. Like Andrew said, you crack the absolute crap out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Caught one of my biggest fall bass ever, really.
6.36.
Oh, I forgot about that one. That was on that. But
What was the 6 you caught the same day you caught that near record friggin' crappie?
I mean, the record crappie?
Yeah, the record crappie. It's a sore subject.
That was on jerkbait. The 636 was on a crankbait.
Wait, no, yeah, but you caught a 6. What was the 6-pounder you caught on the jerkbait that day with Kristen?
Yeah, it was on jerkbait. It was on...
Yeah, but that sorry, so how big was that one? I know it was 6 something.
6
but
even.
Oh, 6 even. Okay,
Yeah.
my bad. I thought they were both like close to the same size. Yeah, kind of close.
Kind of. Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Yeah, when I caught that 6-pounder on this, I was in about 5 feet of water. I'd have to say 5 to 6 feet of water. And I was nonstop just slashing the shit out of one of these things. And then one pause for about 2 seconds, and he came up and smoked it. And he must have been following it for a while.
Yep.
That
And
I felt a little tick, and I didn't know what it was, so I just kept going. And then I paused it about 5 or 6 jerks after, and then he came up and smoked it.
yeah, it's great because you can crack the ever living crap out of the thing, and it catches their attention. But they're moody in the fall, depending upon what the weather has done, and they kind of get into a feed, but it's got to be like just the right opportunity for them, right? So all of a sudden they see this thing darting and slashing across their face like crazy, and they're like, "Oh my god, that looks great," but it's kind of getting away from me. You just give it that one little second, and they just drive right into the back of it.
Yeah, they just kind of can't slow down enough, and it's either they're going to eat it or they're going to just run straight into it.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the beauty of a jerkbait. And to answer Jim B's question that I have up there, suspended, floating, or sinking. Suspended.
Huh? Oh, they're not even going to know the difference. It's not even paused that long for it to sink. Or I would want something suspending. I mean, it's usually going to be probably a Vision 110 now, but back in the day, little Cutter 90s, these things are freaking awesome. The Cutter 90s, the what is the other one I was throwing? The Rapala, what the hell is that thing? Slash bait, whatever they call it. It's a jerk bait. It's the one with the little feather on the back. It's like a 4 or 5 inch jerk bait.
I know. You know what you're talking about.
Those things are awesome. That's actually what I caught that 6-pounder on.
Yep. Sorry. So you showed him the Berkeley Cutter.
Yep, the Berkeley Cutter
and Jackal re-range.
Yep, the Jackal re-range.
What's that? 110.
Megabass, Vision 110. They're all
Strike
good.
Kings. Even the Strike Kings are really good too.
They're all good. They're all gonna work. Just match the hatch, really. I guess just have a few colors. In the fall, I like having something that's kind of vibrant, something to really get their attention. I mean, it all depends on the water clarity, the sun, what the weather's doing.
Austin won on that. The X-Wrap.
X-Wrap, yeah.
That's what.
Sure.
Thank you, Austin and Talon.
Sure.
And JP. Gordy, you suck. I'm kidding. Wrong. No.
Husky jerk? Which one's a husky jerk?
I know what he's talking
Is that
about.
the bigger one?
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Okay, so jerkbait. Your number 3.
Jerkbait.
It's a great number 3. Mm-hmm. What I like about that is it's moving but stationary. I know I already said that, but it's an important thing I want to reiterate because a lot of my go-to fall baits are moving. Dude, it's feast mode. Like this is a time to like really take advantage of being able to fish aggressively, and it's going to pay off big, which is what brings me to my number 3. Come on, you. These are tied because to me these are interchangeable. They are essentially the same thing in that one or the other is going to get bit. Rarely, and I mean exceedingly rare, do I get bit on both. If they're into a really good, flashing, vibrating, moving bait bite for the day, one of these two is going to get destroyed, and the other is just not even going to get looked at. And, I mean, I can literally think of only 2 times in I don't know how many years I've been fishing both of these that have caught fish on both.
Talon, did you agree with Tim? Was that French fried potatoes.
You don't even need to do anything special with these. So if I'm throwing a bladed jig, I pretty much just throw a jackhammer, and I kind of mix it up. I don't like Kitex. There's something about that body style that doesn't work well on a bladed jig. But what does work well is the Strike King Caffeine Shad or the Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper. Like those are both of those are kind of like that boot style swim bait that works exceptionally well on the back of a bladed jig. It swims really, really nicely, and it doesn't get blown out by best I can explain is the turbulence caused by the blade. Or Strike King Rage Claw. Just turn it sideways so that instead of the claws being flat like this, they're vertical. And those have a really nice kick. It looks very fish-like in the end. It just looks like a little fishtail that's like working overtime. It's great. So, literally anything you can think of to throw on the back of that, as long as it's the action on the appendages, be it swim bait or craw type trailer, are not being impeded by turbulence or, I guess, just overall hunt of said bladed jig. It doesn't matter what you throw on the back. It's going to work. And you can play with colors. I try to keep them really natural in the fall. A lot of those fish, they're starting to feed back up heavily on like perch and bluegill, crawfish again, but whatever. Crawfish, this doesn't really help. But like especially perch. The perch get really active, they get up shallow again, and the bass start really, really feeding on them. So kind of anything perch or bluegill, crappie colored, like you can get pretty crazy with it. So that's number one, but this is purely open water. There's something about a bladed jig that likes to just hit, roll, and get stuck. If I look at a tree with this, it gets stuck, and it pisses me off to no end. I don't know what it is about the jackhammer that does it. Maybe it's just my dumb luck. Whatever it is, it happens, and it happens way too often. In the fall, this is where this guy really, really shines. I have lost count of the number of 5+ pound largemouth I've caught.
Like this.
Yeah, true. On this. And actually, prior my previous PB from 2009 that stood until 2020. Is that right?
I know exactly.
Yeah, there's 2 years. Was on a spinnerbait. 6.25 pounds. And it was in the fall. And I'll never forget that day because on the way down into the boat ramp, I looked at my buddy Rafter and I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw a spinnerbait hard today because I just got a really good feeling I'm going to catch a giant. And we were there for only maybe a half an hour. And I deflected it off a tree and it just stopped. It ended up being a 6.25 pound largemouth. And it was, I've caught, year round, except for this year specifically, for some reason I've struggled with the spinnerbait. But especially in the fall, that's tied on and I'm being thrown every day around absolutely everything the same as I would a jig. Like it is an absolute go-to, and I refuse to fish in the fall without having a spinnerbait tied on. It puts numbers and it puts giants. Mm-hmm. Spinnerbait for me is one of my best big bass, especially big largemouth bass producing baits I have ever used.
Seen it.
Without fail. You can fish it through everything. Vegetation, doesn't matter. It's going to come through. Deflect it off rocks all day long. Deflect it off wood, absolutely. You don't need to do anything else with it either. If you want to throw a swim bait trailer on there, by all means, go for it. It certainly doesn't hurt. If you want to throw a trailer hook on it, which I myself have done for many, many years, do it. Doesn't work too well around vegetation, but everything else, it works great. And I've caught a ton of fish just because of that trailer hook. I don't know. I know quite a few guys that like swear by not having them. They're too much of a hindrance, or they get caught up on too much crap or whatever. I don't buy that.
And why didn't the first hook get it?
Huh?
Then why didn't the first hook catch on whatever you caught on?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like a 3/0 hook is typically what those Gamakatsu spinnerbait hook trailer hooks are. And that's it. And me personally, I like fishing it outside face of like just shorelines, man. Like especially around vegetation, I'll just get it out in the front face. I'll try for this, like parallel the bank a lot more often. Parallel outside edge of weed lines. I'll bounce it through, rock piles, the whole 9 yards, and it just gets chomped. 20 pounds straight fluorocarbon, or maybe even a little bit heavier. That's the lightest I would go because you're going to throw it around some gnarly shit. I usually throw it on a 7.2 heavy, fast rod, so it's a little bit more powerful because I'm going to sling this thing 200 feet, and I'm going to set the hook from 200 feet. And it's surprisingly, for how much hype I'm throwing at it, it's still only number 3 on my list. But like Jerry Brusso said in the chat earlier, all of these, if you're in a tournament, you're going to have all 5 of these tied on. I'm not picking any one over the other. I'm having all 5 tied on, and I'm throwing them in these orders. Spinnerbait will almost always be interchangeable from my 1 to my number 3. But I'm going by like years of experience driving these decisions to say which one is like definitively, without fail, through hundreds and hundreds of bass caught, why they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this kind of firmly sits in number 3. It could be higher, and very well should be higher. Definitely can't be lower in my list.
I just read that.
What?
You're right. Roland Martin and I use this echo. I'm like, someone else here fishes with Roland? It's Jerry.
G Hayes, yeah. Yamamoto makes a Seiko that has a boot tail. Works great. Yep, the Seiko. I actually like the Beast Coast Chattershad better. Sorry, Blade Runner. They changed the name.
The Blade Runner. Yeah, that's sick. I like throwing the flipping the light sideways on it.
Flipping the light sideways works.
Works really well.
Really, really good. I mean, again, striking rage crawling. Anything that has good action in the tail when you're swimming it can be used as a trailer on like literally anything. And a swim bait, or spinner bait is no exception to that. I'm saying that. Ooh, Carl, cut the end of tail off the Kitech, and it's a game changer. Interesting. I like it. Brian, how do you like the Thunder Cricket compared to the Chatterbait? Hey,
That was my bad.
Hey, this is a professional production. It's not.
It's Dennis.
Dennis, you should know better. Dennis is too good. He knows too many things, so he doesn't watch us.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not joking.
He's very smart.
I haven't used a Thunder Cricket yet. So, we got picked up by Striking this year, and I've been trying to get my hands on them, and I just haven't got my hands on one yet. I really should try and get my hands on right now, because I'd like to be able to throw on them right now. Because there's a pretty distinct difference between Thunder Cricket and Jackhammer, and it's really the overall tone or pitch, however you want to put it,
think I have
and
a
overall
couple of
volume. Why is my nose so itchy?
Pretty sure I have a couple.
Someone wants to fight me.
Bought years ago. I think I still have them.
Bob, that is a great question. Okay, what type blade and color spinnerbait? So
I can tell you what his is. Chartreuse on chartreuse. Try more special.
Dude, that color slays. And with an Indiana blade. So there's 3 blade types. And there might be more, but like if you're talking about just generally speaking, the bulk of what you can find out there, there's 3 blade types. There's the willow leaf, which is the longer, more slender profile. Then there's an Indiana blade, which is halfway between a willow leaf and a Colorado blade. And then you have your Colorado blade, which is very like spoon-like. It's very round, and that thumps. Warmer water, I'm throwing willow leaf. I want it to be able to move fast. I'm not throwing off a ton of vibration. I want more just flash and be able to move it more quickly through the water, much more streamlined. As the water gets colder, I will slowly work my way down towards a Colorado blade. So like right now, I'm throwing straight up willow leaf. And then when the water gets to like mid 60s, I'll probably go to an Indiana blade. And then as it gets into upper 50s for that last little bit of the year, or if I'm fishing at night, I'm always going to go Colorado blade. And that can also differ depending upon water conditions too. Like if it's really stained water, even though the water's warm right now, I might still prefer an Indiana blade because it throws out a little bit more thump, so it's a little bit easier to be found. Then you get into much more condition-specific scenarios that breaks it down. As for color, I don't know what it is about this color, and this is beat to shit because I throw it, and I've been throwing this for years. This is a Rocky Ledge swim bait. They make some of the best swim baits I've ever used. It's like a copper blade followed by like a hammered nickel, like kind of like dark gray. I'm not really sure how else to explain it.
It's like it's natural.
Yeah, or like black chrome almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
natural looking.
That color combo.
It's not like bright pink.
Exactly. Something about that color combo has produced by far better than anything else. If you're in really good lighting conditions, just straight up chrome tends to work really well. If you're in really cloudy conditions, then gold or copper also work really well. Same deal for chatterbaits, by the way. Not to say that it's 100% the way you should do it. It's just that the majority of the time, those are the way we go with colors, and it just works better that way. Tim, you could dedicate a series of episodes just to the spinnerbait.
Really
You're not. I think we could say that about almost everything at this point. There's so much information we have to share. It's crazy. JP, I fished the Thunder Cricket. Can be fished a little faster than the Jackhammer without blowing out. I haven't tried fishing one though. I even have this experience. Interesting. Carl, let's go fishing, Sean. I'll share with you. All right, I like it. So anyway, Bob, I hope that answers your question. G. Hayes, I did just talk about this. Are you using trailer hooks on your spinnerbaits? Yes and no. Not always, but yes, sometimes. Yes.
If you keep getting short strikes, throw one on there.
If I get one short strike, I'm throwing a trailer hook on there because I know like I don't know. For me, those two baits are very definitive. Like if I'm throwing a spinnerbait, my first bait, it gets inhaled. My first bite, it gets inhaled. The only thing I might consider doing is throwing a swim bait on it. If they're being that aggressive and they're liking it, then I'll throw a second spinnerbait setup going, and that one will have a swim bait because they're liking it. So okay, now I'm gonna really swing to the fences and go for a true giant. If that first like definitive thump just stops the bait, but I don't hook up, as soon as I get that in, I'm throwing a trailer hook on. And I have so many spinnerbaits that I don't actually have to throw a trailer hook on. I just have another of the exact spinnerbait with a trailer hook on it already. What color skirts? Bob, I'd keep it natural. Like I like this because it's kind of perchy. It's got a little bit of chartreuse. It's not quite perchy because of the chartreuse, but everything else about it is pretty perchy.
I don't know the color, but I like that. Like it's like a white and tan.
Another phenomenal color.
That's like my go-to. It just looks bait fishy.
Yep. Anything straight up green pumpkin or something kind of bluegilly colored. Like there's really only 4 main colors I throw, and they're all kind of like either like what Andrew said, kind of on that white realm, or like perch or bluegill colored themed. And then for really, really like just straight up chocolate milk water, I have all black too. Although I don't do nearly as good on pure black spinnerbaits as much as I do pure black jackhammers. I've got, I don't even know how many 5s now. Just largemouth on just straight black jackhammers. And I do have a 6 on that. It's phenomenal. Tim, I never use a trailer hook on a spinnerbait. You should. Some days it is the difference maker, and I've been very grateful to have them. Mm-hmm. Okay, we are already an hour and 10 minutes in. We still have 2. This is why I split this up, because I knew this was going to happen. I wanted to keep it to an hour and a half max if possible, just to cover these. Okay. So recapping. Wait, we got to. I want to recap every single one. So number 5 for me was topwater buzzbait.
Topwater.
Spook for you. Number 4, big ass swim baits for me. You said. I said swim jig with a swim bait.
Swim. Yes.
Okay. Number 3, we just covered. You said
jerk bait,
and I just covered spinnerbait and jackhammer, bladed jig, whatever you want to call it. Austin, shh, don't talk about those colors. So there you go. 5, 4, and 3 on to number 2. You started number 3, right? You did 5, 3. Okay, my turn 2, and then you get to start number 1.
Okay.
So we're gonna circle back a little bit here. My number 2 is a swim bait with a swim jig combo. I should have said that the other way around, but you get my point. This is probably my best producing big fish jig setup, period, in the fall. Now, don't get me wrong. A regular football jig, I have absolutely killed it on for years now. But when you're talking purely big fish, this stands head and shoulders above everything else. And there's a very specific reason for that. There will come a time, some point in the fall here, where we'll get a couple of those first really cold nights, and especially that first frost. But we're still getting really nice warm weather during the days. So is it getting colder? Absolutely. Is it cold yet? No. We just got one of those first few frosts. And all of your vegetation, save for the lily pads, die off. Lily pads and milfoil and maybe a few other select things. But at least for a lot
hardier.
Huh?
They're a little hardier.
Yep. Like at least a lot of the kettle ponds we fish around this area, lily pads, milfoil, and I think it's called pondweed. Looks like cabbage. That stuff tends to hold up fairly well, but especially lily pads. And with those days where everything else dies off, all the bait fish got to go somewhere because it's still plenty warm and they want to be shallow. They're not ready to just go roam out into nothingness. They need to still hide. The bass are going to keep following the bait fish, and that's where this big bastard comes into play. I cannot even begin to guess how many 4+ pound largemouth 5s and 6s I've caught on this exact thing. I prefer a 3/8 ounce head because I'm throwing it usually in 2 feet of water and some thick vegetation. So I want to work it kind of slow so I can move it at a steady pace, keep it off the bottom without burning it. But a 3/8 is just heavy enough that it can slide down through some of the thicker vegetation. And I'm going big. I'm throwing a 4-inch to 5.5-inch swim bait on the back of it. And I'm throwing a 7.2 or longer heavy fast, or even an extra. In the past, I've thrown a 7.6 extra heavy fast rod, straight 20-pound fluoro, because they're going to try and rip the rod out of your hands.
That thing.
One of the best days I ever had solo fishing was because of this exact thing I'm holding in my hand right here.
Wasn't it raining?
It had rained, so it was in November. So even though November sounds like kind of winter weather, that is still in the fall. And it was the day after we got a hurricane. And I have this one particular spot where there's an inlet, and I knew it was going to flush everything in because there was a lot of rain in a short period of time, so it doesn't get absorbed, it just runs off. And it was going to flush everything into this creek, bring in a lot of warm water, flush out all the bugs and crap and stuff, and then the fact that the fish were already moved up to that because the lily pad's at the mouth of it, like, it had the perfect recipe. I went to my boss, I'm like, I got to leave early. Like, this is an opportunity I can't pass up, and I am so glad I didn't.
I remember that day.
I caught a 5.15, a 5.05, a 4.5, a 4 3/4. I dumped another 4+. It pissed me off to no end. I had like a 3.14 or something like that. And literally it all happened on one spot because of this. It's you can throw it around anything. You just straight swim the damn thing. It doesn't get any easier, and the big fish love it. It is so good. So good. That's my number 2. I'm going back to the chat. There's a lot of questions and comments. Yeah, no, Tim, I get that regarding the spinnerbait. Here we go. Carl, Sean, do you throw this big swim jig on fluoro every straight braid and thick junk? I don't like braid as much because of the way that I have my reels tuned. I'm like, go big or go home on every cast. And if I miss a little bit on fluoro, I have that wiggle room for error. If I miss on braid, I'm having a really bad day. So until I can get a little bit better with controlling my drag so that it's like dead accurate every time, I'm still going to go fluoro. Plus, there's always so many friggin' rocks around where I fish. I just like to feel fluoro better, and I like having that peace of mind that if I run into any rocks, which I do more often than not, I don't have to worry about it because braid does not like abrasion. Fluoro loves it. Straight 20-pound fluoro. And, I mean, you can absolutely drop the hammer on fish with that. Love it.
And sometimes setting the hook, well, for me, with my wrist and all, setting the hook with straight.
Click.
Dude, look, it's bad. Like,
oh, yeah, show it. God.
It's pretty gross. But setting the hook with straight braid with this wrist, it's unbelievably painful. So, straight fluoro for me on pretty much everything now. Besides, like, some of my spinning setups, and I have one 7.6 heavy fast rod that I use for like my citizens and stuff like that. But other than that, I use straight fluoro because it hurts too much.
Yep. Jim, what is your swim jig? So I really like, even though I'm not supposed to use it in places, Beast Coast Gorilla Swim Jig is phenomenal. They also have their new Working Man Swim Jig. Started fishing that recently. Bite's not quite there yet, but it's getting close. Wicked nice jig.
Within the next month.
Strike Kings were the ones I'd used forever. Their Hack Attack Swim Jig, I think is what it is. That thing's great. Dude, that is got to be one of the most stout hooks I've ever seen on a jig. You can pull up a friggin' semi-truck on that hook.
Is that the one they pulled the truck with?
They probably did. I wouldn't be surprised. It's crazy thick.
Which one was that?
The Strike King Hack Attack?
I'm pretty sure they pulled like a Hackney?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they pulled a truck with that hook.
I believe it. That's it. I mean, those I rock anywhere between 3 weights. 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce, 1/2 ounce. 3/8 is almost what I throw exclusively now because it just works for everything. If I feel like I'm fishing really, really shallow and I'm not getting off the bottom enough, I will slow it down to I'll drop it down to 1/4 ounce. But then sometimes I can't get through the vegetation like I need to. So 3/8 tends to end up being that magic number for me. And then for colors, same deal as everything else. I just keep it simple, man. You can go straight green pumpkin, it's gonna work great. Anything kind of perchy, bluegill, like you can throw straight up white, all black and blue, doesn't matter. Like you can throw a whole color range. They're gonna eat it. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to recall. I think Beast Coast does have. I mean, you could throw an Arky head too. You can throw a 3/8 ounce Arky head, and it's still going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's tungsten, so you can get that from Beast Coast. Leadfreebassjigs.com. Based out of Massachusetts, he's got some really good stuff too. So definitely take a look at him. I've been buying stuff from him for like the last 10 years now. I think it's been a while. JP. Oh, I like fishing a 1/4 ounce swim jig on 10-pound fluoro in shallow water. Are you doing that like near any vegetation? Because like I've horsed some crazy fish out of some really thick stuff actually on 10-pound. But I only do that if I'm fishing like a fluke or Senko,
Geez,
like weightless Texas rig.
All I used to fish my jigs was with 10 and 12 pound fluoro.
Yeah, 10-pound fluoro is still pretty stout stuff.
Yeah, I mean if you're fishing literally a sand flat.
Right. Hella bass. Hey, friend. Thanks for jumping in, buddy. Appreciate it.
Number 2?
Yeah. So that was my number 2. So now you're number 2.
My number 2.
Is this?
Frick yeah.
There you go, buddy.
My number 2.
I gotta get water.
The square bill. I kind of fish this hand in hand with a jig. If they're biting a jig as I'm cracking it out of the rocks or whatever, or anything that I'm cracking it out of, and they're smoking it, I'm gonna pick up the square bill. Doesn't have to be this size. I think this is a 2.5 or 3 inch. I think this is a 2.5. A lot of the times I'll start out with like the 1.5s. I don't think we have any in here right now. No, we don't. But like just the smaller little square bills. I will work this with, like I said, hand in hand with a jig. I will match the colors. I will try and do my best to match the colors to whatever I'm catching them on with the jig. Because 9 times out of 10, when I go out, I start fishing a jig first. So if they're hitting something black and blue, I'll go with a darker colored square bill. If they're hitting something with some orange on it, like the craws, like they're molting and or they have molted and they got orange claws, or their whole body's orange or whatever. There's some orange on there. That's pretty natural looking. If you can physically see them blowing up on bluegill, throw something bluegill. Just match the hatch. Size. Like I said, I usually start with like the 1.5s, and if they're hitting that, like literally no problem, they're absolutely demolishing it. You can move. Then I'll go and move up my size. I usually don't throw these bigger ones. You usually throw the bigger ones.
I love the
often than
2.5s.
not.
Those are my favorite.
I like the 1.5s, just because I've caught. I mean, it's a smaller bait. You're gonna catch a lot more fish on it. It's just an easier bait to eat. I mean, was it 2 years ago? Me and Travis went out.
Yeah, and that was a 6.36 on the 1.5.
6.36 on the 1.5 in about 3 feet of water, and it was just around rocks. Like those fish, when the water gets that cold, like starts getting colder, they're gonna move up into those shallower. They're gonna follow the bait up into the shallower water. They're gonna move up into the rocks because the rocks hold heat. They're gonna move up into the timber because the timber holds heat. They're just gonna be more comfortable sitting in there with those in those ambush points when the water is more comfortable for them, and they're just gonna absolutely demolish everything in sight because, like I said, it's the fall feed bag. They're just gonna eat as much as possible. And number 1.
I wholeheartedly agree. Like that, there's nothing I can do to elaborate on that. Square bill is not my top 5, but it is absolutely in my honorable mentions because like cranking right now this time of the year is so much fun, especially when they move up and they get like consistently on those like shallow flats adjacent. Like especially if you can find a nice shallow flat that has a nice drop off like close to their wintering holes. Oh my god, that's so much fun. You just absolutely crush them doing that. I mean, any of these spinnerbait, chatterbait, jerkbait, big swim baits, but especially a square bill.
Oh, square bill is just it's a fun fight. I mean, it's a fun bite.
Yeah,
like you're just sitting there, just mindless, nothing. Pause, crank, pause. Dunk. It's like, oh shit! You just don't. And especially if you're throwing a square bill, and you're catching bass in the rocks on a jig or on like say Texas rig or whatever the hell you're catching them on, and you decide to throw a crankbait, crash this thing in those rocks. Try and break the bill off it. They're not expensive.
No, and you will break the bill off.
You will break the bill off. 100%.
Then you know you're fishing it right.
I have literally gone out and I have broken 2 or 3 of these in a day, just trying to fish it and get bites. And I mean,
I broke 2 in 2 days on Champlain back in May, and I caught quite a few fish doing that too. Actually, I was killing it on that in this for like a couple of windows there.
Yeah, I mean they come along, they're coming across, and they hit that rock, and it's gonna hit, and it's gonna make a weird, all crazy noise, and it's gonna freaking do all this type of shit, and that bass is gonna be like, oh shit, I fucked up, and I'm gonna come up and smash it.
JJ, Saquon for peak, but Damien for longevity. Anyway, so Ski Vermont asks, should I use medium or medium heavy for crankbait fishing? I will always use the heaviest rod I can comfortably get away with, but you have to take in consideration what your hooks are. What I like about these Strike King hooks, they're pretty stout.
Triple C thick.
They take quite a bit to bend them out. I can't remember what it is that they use on them, but they're a fairly thick gauge and they work really well. I have other crankbaits that have these really, really thin gauge hooks,
Really
but they
light
work
wire.
great.
Yeah.
You do not want a medium heavy rod for that. You probably want a medium. And then you really got to ease into it. You want to back your drag down a little bit because they're going to puncture really easily, and they can also pop out or bend out just as easily. So to answer that question really depends upon what hooks you're throwing or what hooks are on the bait that you are throwing.
And it's not like a hook set like on a spinnerbait or a jig. Like there's not just one hook. They're treble hooks, so you can literally just lean into it and start reeling.
Yep.
And they should stay pinned as long as you keep tension on it.
Yep. You like one of the things I've been trying to make sure I master, and I'm really happy with where I'm at with it, especially on braid, but doing the same thing with crankbaits where say you're holding the rod straight out in front of you, right? You're at 12 o'clock. The end of my hook set is going to be about 3 or 4 o'clock, at least to 3, but sometimes I'll keep bringing it all the way back to as far back as 4, and then I'm fat and old, so I can't quite twist that much further. If I get bit, I'm going to go real hard and fast on my initial swing from 12 to 1, and then like pump the brakes hard and just ease in the rest of the way. So that way I kind of get that initial little pop, or if there's any slack they created from immediately biting it, that quick surge picks up that slack as well, and then I ease the rest of the way into it from there, so that way I'm not ripping the bait out of their mouth as well. And that has served me exceptionally well for any treble hook baits, like jerk baits or crankbaits, kind of lighter duty application, treble hooks will say, and especially even fishing jig stuff, because straight braid applications, because you end up setting the hook too hard, you're just going to rip it out anyway.
Right, like if I'm setting the hook on a crankbait, I'll usually do a sweep, and I'll just reel fast, because 9 times out of 10, if they're coming after a crankbait, they're probably going to come from behind it, especially if you're working it shallow. So if they hit it, they're probably coming from behind it or from the side, and they're probably going to follow straight back to like swim towards you. So you really want to start cranking that thing. And if they're not there, if you know for a fact they're not there, pause it, because they could just be following it. They could have hit it initially, and then they start chasing it. And when you pause it, they'll come back up and hit it again.
Yep. There we go. That's number 2.
Number 2.
I did my number 2. My number 2 is swim jig with a swim bait, and yours is a square bill. Number 1. We're finally at the end. This is going to be the most surprising thing. You're going to be absolutely shocked. It's a jig. Just
You guys have literally no idea what we're throwing. It's a freaking jig. Always. It's always a jig. If you want to learn how to throw a jig, go back to pretty much any episode that we've had in the past, and we mention something about a jig. Almost every single episode.
I'm not sure how much more we can elaborate on this, other than you should be throwing 2 jigs. I'm throwing a football.
Some sexy looking grass right there.
Yeah, like that. I like to always take home souvenirs with me from every lake I go to.
Put it in a pipe and smoke it. Smoke pancake.
Jig is by far the most versatile of them all. You're going to catch numbers. You're going to catch size. You're probably going to catch your PB. Like it doesn't get any better.
Spring and
There's
fall.
a reason why we've been talking about this for how many weeks now? And why
All
we
4
talk about it
seasons and
every
fall.
year. Now, where it gets tricky is JJ, fall jig colors. This is where you want to start to get really kind of colorful with what you're doing. The crawfish are starting to molt. And not to say that you always have to imitate a crawfish with a jig, but more often than not, I'm trying to imitate a crawfish with a jig. And the orange on them becomes much more pronounced as they go through kind of one of their final stages of molting, and their colors change rapidly before they just kind of shed everything and become this like dark green, muddy brown kind of color combo, and like blacks basically. At least from what we've seen, from where we fish around our areas. It's going to vary from where you are. If you really want to know what color you need to be throwing for this, when you catch a fish, throw it in the live well and let them chill for a couple hours. Or go get a bait trap and set it up and see what you get at the end of the day. Those 2 things, I mean, really, if you want to set up a bait trap, that is absolutely your best bet to do. And the plus side to that is you might find that, actually you will find, from year to year, the crawfish don't always do the same thing. Like, last year, we were throwing jigs with a ton of orange. All right, go ahead.
Same day, same lake, opposite ends of the lake, they'll be different.
Yep. It's wild. So that's kind of one of the benefits of boxing your fish, whether or not you're going to take a picture of them or whatever. They're going to spit up crawfish as long as it's not stupid hot. Be smart about your fish, please. Be careful with them. But they're going to spit up what they've been eating, especially when it comes to crawfish. They don't usually always spit up like a lot of bait fish, but crawfish, like if they're really on them,
like
there's going to be a pile in your live well in like an hour.
Yeah, like a claw or 20.
Yeah.
Or tail, or everything, the whole thing.
It can be subtle. Like we had a fish spit up a crawfish claw into the boat on us this weekend, and it was just mostly still like a green pumpkin color, and just the very, very, very tip of the claw, like literally a 16th of an inch of the tip of the claw was bright orange. It's little subtle differences like that that matter greatly when you're out there. Last year was insane. We were throwing like just almost pure orange jigs at one point, like literally orange skirts with laminate jig trailers.
We did.
Yeah, we were literally throwing just 100% pure jigs, or pure orange jigs.
I don't think we have it out here right now.
No, I put them all away. I finally organized. But then like last year, like a green pumpkin or like the stealth craw from Beast Coast, so kind of a mix of like greens, browns, blacks, and then a laminate trailer that's half green pumpkin, half orange, or the way Striking pours them on their Bomber Craw color is what it is. There ends up being a lot more orange in there in some of the mixes. And those ones with the majority of orange, we're getting chomped.
It's funny because sometimes when we're going, like, looking through bait bags, like, now we just order them through Strike King. We don't really have to go to the store anymore and order them. But when they send us, like a bulk order of jig trailers, we can literally go through, and some of them will be different. Like, I mean, most of them are different. But bag to bag, they're going to be different. But some of them have a lot more orange in them. Some of them have a lot less orange in them. Right now, we'll probably go with a little less, but when the fall starts really kicking in, you can go through your bags of baits and find ones that have a little more orange in them. Like last year we did that. This year it could be different. We don't know yet. We're not there yet.
Yeah, thus far, no orange. I mean, last year, like, started middle of summer.
We've caught a couple that on orange, but it hasn't been nearly as consistent as just natural green pumpkin and darker colors.
Yeah. So my buddy Chad texted me and said, would you put spider jigs in that same category? No, not yet. Because for me, a spider jig, I mean, well, yes and no. It's kind of close. Spider jig for me tends to do better, we'll say, halfway through that fall period, right? But like water temps are going to start coming down quite a bit. And I'm like, if the jig bite has been going off really consistently for weeks and all of a sudden it just dies off one day, I'll pick up a spider jig because maybe they want something a little bit more finesse, but still kind of along those same lines. But that now, when spider jig for me really starts to shine, is much colder water or smallmouth pretty much any time of the year. But like low 60s and colder, I'll have a spider jig tied on then. But when we're talking like kind of prime fall fishing, I don't typically throw the spider jig at that point. I did see, great question from JJ again, using lively trailers or chigger craw type flappers. I'll have a zoom chunk, but conditions change. You want to answer that one first?
In the fall, I use something with the most amount of action.
Damn right.
Because they're looking for something to eat.
Yep.
They're not just like kind of like moseying around, be like, that looks kind of tasty. Not really moving much, so I guess I'll eat it. It's like they see that thing falling, and they're after it. They're either on it as it hits the bottom, or within a few little doobers.
Yeah, they're still in that very much reactionary, like sight feeding, full on attack mode. So having that lively action in the trailers is hugely beneficial to you. As water starts to get colder, then you might want to try and find something that's kind of like halfway between, say, the Zoom Chunk and a Striking Rage Craw or Beast Coast Flippin' Delight, because they both are at that same level of like crazy action on the fall. Although what I like best about the Flippin' Delight is it has crazy good action on the fall, but then the appendages still stand straight out. Mm-hmm. So you kind of get the best of both worlds in that. Catches their attention on the way down, but still stands up in a very like easy to see presentation. It's like, hey, I'm still here.
It's funny because that's a flipping trailer. It's a Texas rig trailer, and it works absolutely phenomenal on jigs as a jig trailer.
It legitimately is has become our go-to jig trailer.
Mm-hmm.
like bar none. And the rage craw had been for
Still
my summer fishing.
It all depends on if they want a little more action. If they want a little more action on the fall, the rage, I still think.
Yeah,
Can't think the
it's
name.
a bulkier presentation and a much more, a little bit more violent action in the appendages on the fall than the Flip and Delight. But the Flip and Delight is nearly there.
Yeah, it's damn close.
Yeah, but then the Rage Craw just kind of like folds over a little bit on itself. So it's kind of like a twin-tailed grub, right? Like that's going to be the most wild and crazy thing on the fall because the legs like really kind of swim and kick.
As soon as it gets to the bottom, it's like...
Yep, and the bulk of it is gone. It's no longer looking like a crawl in a defensive position. Butt down, arms up. Leave me alone.
You say butt down, arms up.
Butt down, arms up. Shut up.
Okay.
There's children watching.
Roger that.
There you go, Carl. Other than Beast Coast, what tungsten compact style jigs do you prefer? I'm looking for a compact Arky style. I cannot answer that because they're literally the only ones I throw for tungsten. I haven't even bothered to look at anybody else because Beast Coast literally has everything I need. They have every color and size I could possibly want. So I've never even bothered looking at anybody else. South Jersey. From personal experience, it seems like if you have a lot of yellow perch in your waters, orange or golden color baits get smacked. Yup, absolutely. And it is funny because even like bodies of water that are relatively close to each other will have wildly different degrees of orange in the perch. Like there's some places that like the orange is nuclear. And then the other places where there's really not that much orange, but then like the fins become really, really red. So there's a little subtle differences like that. Then until you see them, you don't.
Those fish are super black and they're really dark.
Yeah, it's wild how much they vary.
Those are the good ones.
Yep. The BFE from Big Bait is a flipping trailer that has near no action that works killer in the fall too. I like it. Oh, there we go. JJ agreed on the FD. Crushing them with modifications you guys suggested. That bait is killer. I'm hardly flipping with it because I love them on my jigs. There you go. Flipping Delight does slay. So, I don't know, man. Like, if there's any other questions you guys want to throw at us, like, now's the time. Because it's only 9:35. So, we got plenty of time. I'll sit here for another half an hour and answer questions if you guys have them. But that's it. So, to recap, your 1 through 5, top 5 baits. What's your number 1 all the way down?
1 through 5. Number 1, jig. Number 2, square bill. Number 3, what the hell did I say?
Number 3, I'm sorry, you said
was it jerkbait?
Yep.
Number 4 was...
Swim jig, swim bait.
Swim jig with a swim bait. Big swim bait. And number 5 was the spook, top water. Honorable mention, I would throw right behind the jig.
Right now. Should be throwing them. Big old glides.
These are little babies.
That's an 8-inch glide. Shut up.
That's what I throw, though.
Oh, you just threw the focus out on that camera so hard. When you put those two up, the camera was like, yeah! It grabbed both of them real hard.
You'll buy one. You'll buy one. You're going to get one. How's that 8
Does
inches?
anyone want to buy my... Put that down for a second.
This? I'll buy it.
For real?
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like if
I want to paint it.
If I'm going to buy that depths, I got to get rid of something else.
I'll buy that. I want to paint it.
This is the only one I don't think I want to get rid of.
Then don't get rid of
Between the depths and this, that's literally all I need. I can just sell the rest of like literally all my other glides can go away.
I just gave all my other ones away.
Yeah. I'm sensing a solution coming. Okay, so for me, my 1 through 5. Number 1, jigs and always jigs. Football, primarily, followed by Arky head. Arky head if I'm still getting around vegetation, but I will fish a football through some of the gnarliest shit possible. Number 2, swim jig with a swim bait trailer because it just has produced some of the biggest fish for years. Number 3, spinnerbait / bladed jig because they're going to eat one or the other if the conditions are right for that. I will try both, determine which one they want, and just hammer down on either one of those. It's never both, with the exception of literally only 2 occasions. So it's almost never both. But that's my number 3. Number 4, big boy swim baits, because my God, is that fun when they choke something that big.
I just can't put a number on big baits, though. That's the thing.
It's hard, but...
Because I'll work it in between each of them.
I've had a lot of luck specifically on this one. I've got a Pats now. I've got my Piz. I've got like
so many goddamn fish on
I've got so many fish on that bait. It's stupid. It's so
Remember
good.
the night fishing on 4th of July?
Oh my god.
When he had fireworks going off and he's tossing this thing and oh man, that was so much fun. That was a good night.
Yeah, it was. And then my number 5 was topwater. Buzzbait primarily is my go-to, although something like a spook, the Strike King, either of those, they work great. That's it. Those are our top 5. Let's see where the questions were.
They're all just talking to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, JP, spot on. Bluegill can vary a lot in color, too, in different waters.
All
South
fish
Jersey.
do.
Do you guys use any big spoons for fall time? Not yet, but we bought them. And actually, I was looking at one from Nichols Lures I meant to send you today.
I've seen them.
A silver, a gold, and one very smelt looking like one. 8-inch. But they also have a 6.5, which I think would actually be better.
I think the ones we have are 5.5 or 6 inch.
Yep. So
remember.
we got a bunch from Strike King specifically for this fall.
I've already thrown it this
Into the
year.
winter. That you did.
That's going to be a fun bite just by throwing it.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. It's
On the
gonna
big
be, it's
swim
like
bait rod?
It's like a giant.
There's no other way I'm throwing that. I'm throwing on my Super Duty rod, my Super Duty reel, and straight 20-pound fluoro. Otherwise, I'm going to be exhausted in like 10 minutes.
It's really not that bad.
Well, no, not the striking one. I'm thinking about throw the Nichols.
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm thinking about buying a big boy.
It's like a giant blade bait. That's
Yeah.
what it feels like you're throwing. Just and then let it pause. It's pretty cool.
David, you mean my bullshad bull glide? I won't say no to you painting it. You know what's funny?
Why
Bought
don't
this-
we have him paint it and we'll auction it off.
Now you're talking. I like that idea. David, let's talk. This, by the way, is a phenomenal bait. Like, if you're not going to spend the money on depths, everybody I've talked to that lives and dies by these big baits has said bullshad makes the best next option. And actually, a lot of guys say they're even better than the depths. It depends on what it is you're actually looking for. I did catch 2 fish on this so far. I just don't stick to it long
Whoever
enough.
gets that bait is very lucky because I've been eyeing that bait for a long time.
Yeah, and I don't even think he makes this. This is like a special, this is like a rare drop item as far as I remember. I'll talk to Brian and get the lowdown from him on that. I want to see.
Get an actual what it's worth first before you just here $10.
JJ, mag draft and clear water. Yes. 6-inch and 8-inch. We've caught fish on both.
I've never
not
caught a
ton,
bass
but-
on them.
No, I have though. It's kind of funny.
I caught a huge white perch and I caught a huge suckerfish on it. And that's all I've caught on that draft. I'm all set.
I caught a couple of rats and then 3 3/4 on an 8-inch one.
Just kidding. I'm gonna throw the shit out of it this winter.
Damn right. I did buy one very specific one that I feel pretty goddamn good about. Only because my buddy Smallmouth Freaks there on Instagram has done very well on it. So we'll see. Yeah, Tim, it is a spectacular glide bait. When you get this thing worked, like we were fishing Champlain with this in the spring. We're working some really shallow docks. And I finally figured out with the rod I was throwing it on exactly how to work it. And I was getting like 6, not even joking, like 6-foot swings out of this glide. I get it to go like 2 feet roughly one way. And I get it to go 6 feet back the other way. So I threw it parallel to the dock, turned it out, and then got it to go all the way back to the other side of the dock and come back out and all the way back in. It's phenomenal. So much fun.
The dock walk. I don't know if that's what it's called, but just made it up.
The Bill Gill Glide is a great bait. Awesome for cover gliding. One of the glides that you can straight crank no problem and actually look good. Oh, yeah. No, I've seen that. Oh, maybe I want to keep it. I do like that bait. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I told you last year you should keep it, and you kept it, and you caught a fish on it, and then you
You're
stopped
right.
fishing it.
Okay, I want to paint it, but I'm not going to give it away. I'll find another bait. We'll do something else.
I got a bluegill glide I can give away. Actually, I think I have 2 of them. I don't know. I got a couple of them I can give away because I just don't use them.
Yeah.
Look at the Stone Man one too.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot you bought that.
It's actually a pretty nice glide.
Yeah.
It's small. I think it's a 5.5 or 6 inch glide.
What
But
was the
it's-
paint scheme on that?
It's bluegill.
Oh, yeah. That was a sexy bait.
It's pretty cute.
Yeah. But, all right. Anyway, let's wrap it up. So thank you all for watching. Numbers, by the way, tonight killed it. One of our best streams we've had in a while. So everybody, I don't know, if I had to go back through and see all the social media posts. A lot of you guys shared the stream. Cannot tell you. I will say it until I'm blue in the face how much we appreciate that you guys continue to do that for us. So for everybody that did, thank you. I'll get to the post. I'll make sure that I personally reach out to you like I do every week, almost without fail. So hopefully you guys found this really helpful. Hopefully learned something. I really hope we answered all the questions. I did my best. I don't think I missed anything, but by all means, let me know if I missed something. Hit me up too. Like seriously, anywhere on social media, whether it's Messenger, through Facebook, or on Instagram. I'm active on Fishbrain again, finally, remembering to post on there. I gave up on Twitter. Nobody cares about Twitter. So just...
That's why I've never had one.
Anytime you guys have questions, you just want to reach out, just hit me up. I respond to everybody. I'm not always on point for responses for everybody in timeliness, because sometimes the volume gets a little out of hand.
Yeah, he might be better at responding than I. You can still hit me up if you want. Say hi.
Yeah. But I do get back to everybody. Except if you send me anything on Sunday, expect to not hear from me until Monday. That's the only caveat. But otherwise, man, I'm an open book. Anytime you guys want to reach out, that's what we're here for. So hopefully, again, this was very, very helpful for you guys. We'll be back here same time next week, and we're going to do the same thing all over again, but for smallmouth. And I'm actually thinking I'm going to try and rope in a guest for that one, because I think that could be fun. Because I can't elaborate on smallmouth.
Is he up north?
Maybe.
Okay.
There's a couple of guys we could... I've had ideas for bringing on.
No, I'm saying, like, right now, is he up there?
No.
Okay. He had to close up camp, didn't he?
Not until October.
Oh, yeah, 'cause I don't want to...
I'm going to Lake Ontario this month.
I'm not.
I'm sorry.
I won't be able to get the time off in time.
I'm going out with smallmouth freaks
That's
to
like
Lake
the worst thing in
Ontario.
the world, having vacation time, but I won't be able to, like, he just came up with this idea yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I need like a 3-week note, two or 3 week notice.
Oh, before you take a day off?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's I guess that's kind of fair especially when they're scheduling around like builds to deliver to customers.
And I'm the only one that does it.
Right. So
Dude, we
that's
just got
reasonable.
So many side-by-sides.
Oh, good
The
luck.
entire lower warehouse,
Yep.
like full.
Damn.
There's
Good
like
luck with that.
30 freaking side-by-sides in there. It's ridiculous.
Anyway.
So anyway,
Largemouth was tonight. Next week is smallmouth talk. Top 5 baits again. The following week, we're going to talk about Bass Fishing Electronics. We're going to have Steve back from Bass Fishing Electronics, based out of Auburn, New Hampshire, back
Mr.
on.
Estes,
Talking about like all things Bass Fishing Electronics again. There's more new things we can discuss. The other thing, though, it's like a 50-50, is just like key boat accessories. That's something we don't really talk about. And it's like things that you wouldn't normally even think about until you see someone use it and you're like, oh my God, that's like a $5 tool. And that would save me so much hassle for so many things.
or you're in a situation where something happens, you're like, what would I would have used for this? Would have been great.
Exactly. So that's going to be the other part of it. So yeah, I don't know, man. We got a lot to discuss for that. The week after that, there'll be no stream. I'll be traveling for work. I'll be in Tampa Bay. But that's not for another 3 weeks anyway. So we got plenty of time. And it's just going to be a blur like that. It's going to be December.
Maybe that week and I'll take the trip down to that other lake with my boat.
Oh, I'll be here for the weekend. I just won't be here for the Wednesday.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Oh, wait. No, I take that back. Yeah, no, that weekend that I won't be fishing that Sunday.
I will be there, apparently.
There you go. I don't know if you figured it out. You go down, fish that lake, hammer him. Okay. I'm done talking. It's his turn.
But anyway, thank you guys for showing up again and again for the millionth time. 77 episodes now, I think.
This was 77.
And you guys have pretty much all been here for every single one of them. So we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And if you guys want to be here for the next one, that'll be Wednesday at 8 o'clock at youtube.com/603bass. Bye.
Have a good night, everybody.
See you later.